Hello and welcome back to the Artist Forge Live. My name is Nicole York. I will be your host, and today I am joined by the entire Artist Forge crew: Matt Stagliano, Bassam Seba, and Becca Bjorky. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Um,
Hello.
so it's been a little while since we've got to be together. If you are hanging out in the audience today, please say hi. We miss you guys. We love you guys. We want to talk to you and know who's hanging out with us. So go ahead and leave a comment. And remember, if you want StreamYard to be able to show your Facebook name, you do have to give StreamYard permission. Otherwise, just tag it on there and let us know. Let us know who you be. So as we wait for some friends to join us, hello. It takes like a long time to do it, but I don't have to do my hair then for like 3 days, which is fantastic for me. So, so I want to start with asking Matt. So we didn't get to have you during WPPI. How was it? How did everything go? I was really sad to miss everybody.
Well, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to plug. WPPI was great. I was just putting out a video with kind of all my thoughts about it. And it was my second time ever going. Last year was my first time. And there were probably, I don't know, 2,000, 2,500 people last year. This year was like 7,000 people. So it damn near tripled in attendance, which means every talk that was there was really full. There were a lot that were, standing room only or sold out. Lindsay Adler, Jerry Gionis, right? Some of the bigger names. There was a palpable sense and energy that things are good, but there was also this undercurrent of, wow, we're really burned out and we need some serious mental health conversations going on. So it just seemed as an industry that there's a lot of energy and hope for the future, but we're all kind of facing the same little bits of struggle right now, where bookings are slow or things are getting delayed or we're just not where we want to be. So overall, the conference was excellent. I think they added some great things in. They had shooting bays all along the perimeter, which is really, really nice. I saw Kat give her talk and it was phenomenal, of course. What do you expect? But the vendors were good. The conversations were good. I think what I really liked seeing most of all were some of the innovative things that are coming out. And Fuji fanboy, but they have this really cool thing, camera to cloud, where the battery grip automatically uploads to the cloud anything that you're shooting up to Frame.io. Really cool technology that isn't quite there 100% yet, but I love the way that innovative thought process goes along. How can we better help people in not only film, but still photography? How can we work with art directors in disparate places? So there were things that I was seeing that gave me a lot of kind of gear lust, gear envy. But overall, my intention was to get out there and see people in 3D. And I did that. And it was really good to just kind of hug people, be in their presence. Erica Manning and I spent 8 hours together on the first day. Like, it's so great to just be around that. And Sisela and Kat and Nikki and all the people. So it was really just nice to be around that energy again. So yeah, it was a great time.
Yay! I miss it so much. Go ahead, Bassam.
I was going to joke a bit. Tell me straight, Matt, how many thousands of dollars are you going to spend on new gear because of the WPPI?
I love that you love me and you know me to my core. You know everything about me. I didn't spend a dime this year on gear. Let's call a spade a spade. That is amazing that I didn't come home with anything. But yeah, no, I looked at it and I was like, I got everything I need. I don't need anything else.
Maybe I can get you a 2-for-1 special on that stabilizer you want to get.
Stop. No, stop.
All right.
I love that. And that you got to see so many of our collective fam,
oh God, they were all out there.
Part. Yeah,
it was so great to see so many people and coming up and mentioning the Artist Forge, and it was cool, right? When you think that like no one ever sees any of this, people are watching. Maybe not today, maybe not listening to me, but they're watching. So that was the good thing. It was great to see so many folks. Did my heart good.
I feel like it's been a couple years since I've been able to go, but I feel like that has always been my favorite part of everything is after you go and you get to see everybody, you just feel this renewed like sense of vigor and excitement for your job, you know? Like that's the best part, I think.
Yeah, and I came home with 2 messages. One, and they both came from Kat's speech. Shocker.
Oh, I know, big surprise.
Do the thing.
She's not inspirational at all.
Do the thing, execute, just do it. And while you're doing it, be consistent at it. And while the personal attacks were just being hurled at me for, not doing anything and not doing it consistently at that, those are the messages that I was hearing over and over. And I did come home with that renewed sense of urgency to be better at my business, be better at the craft, and that there is joy in the work, right? There is joy in doing it every day and finding the consistency and doing the marketing, even though you hate it, there is joy in it. And so I'm shifting my energy that way. That makes sense?
100%. I love that. That is awesome.
Awesome.
If we have any friends who went to WPPI this year, let us know in the comments how you found everything. If it felt good to be forever, I mean, just everybody to be back, right? Like it was different the last couple of years. Most of the time, whenever I've gone to a convention before, it was like we went to the last one right before COVID hit. And there's always, I mean, everybody, you find everybody there, and it just is such a good feeling. So let us know how you were. I noticed that this is Lindsay. So yay, Lindsay's with us. Lindsay's amazing. Bassam, Becca, anything you guys have going on that you want to share or chat about before we get into today's interesting conversation?
No, I just have a little bit of a bitch. I was listening to Matt talking, you talking about engagement on TikTok and so on. And, I've often talked about that most of my business comes from my Google ad, right? So I've been with Google ads for, a couple of years, and it's been really good. And what's good for me how I define good is what's been happening is I would get 25 to 30 visits to my website a day from the Google ad, right? And then I booked a certain percentage of that. For some reason, for the last 2 months, that 25 to 30 has become 2 to 5. Out of the blue, from one day to the next. And luckily, Google's reached out and they have somebody helping me. I'm going to try to figure it out. But it just sounds like you just got to spend more money type of thing, right? So it's a bit of a piss off, being kind of I wouldn't say the single source, but the main source of my clients. So if anybody has an idea why that would happen from one day to the other, hey, I welcome the advice.
For sure. And for folks who are part of the Facebook group, if they don't mind sharing that there, I mean, that would be super helpful to everybody.
I'll put it on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things in there, Bassam, and I've been in the same boat as you. I run Google ads, and I had noticed a couple months back that my numbers were really, really low. And I went back and checked, and there were a couple of things that were happening. One, the woman that I had hired to set up the Google ads didn't do it correctly. Oops. And then secondarily, there were some keywords that were repetitive that were being used. I wonder if Google was penalizing that. Regardless, I went through on the Google ads and the Google Analytics and all the stuff. On the Google ads, I took some of their suggestions, implemented those, and I've seen everything take back off again. So I don't know if it's just been a couple of weeks where they were making some changes, things weird, happened across the board. But yeah, I'm now seeing somewhere on average of 40 or 50 new users to the website a day, which is great. And I feel like I'm back on track. So check some of those keywords, work with them, work with Google, because they're going to know.
I did. And they've already done some things. I just haven't seen the difference yet. But my ad has been working for a year and a half. So it's not like it was set up in a way that actually worked, at least.
Sure.
So maybe it could have done better. I don't know. But my point is that it's a drastic change. It's not. And it's from one day to the other. So yeah, I've done those just recently. So we'll see if that makes a difference. I'm going to reach out to the guy again to do some more things. We just didn't have time to finish last time.
Fingers crossed for you. It's really frustrating when stuff like that happens, especially when it is so, it just makes no sense.
Well, it's when you don't know why. If I knew why, and
Right.
yes, it's hard work to fix it, you do the work, but I just have no idea why. But anyways,
Yeah, fingers crossed it changes soon and they're able to get everything settled for you. Like Bassam said, if you have any thoughts on that, you can go ahead and respond and we'll grab those. And he'll also put that in the Facebook group. So if you are running Google Ads as well, this might be helpful for you. All right. So unless you have anything you want to bring up, Becca, I'll introduce our topic for the day.
Not really. It is interesting, actually, to me that Bassam had a drop in Google Ads over the last 2 months, because I've also had a weird, drastic change in online traffic in the last 2 months, and it seems like a lot of people have, as far as sales generation. But I don't know enough about the general economy to really have a solid opinion. But there's there's something up. There's something in
maybe
the
it's
air.
tied to bank performance.
I'm sorry?
The bank, maybe it's tied to the banking industry. Yeah.
It could be. It absolutely could be. Yeah. Who knows?
That was a tongue-in-cheek remark, but it is.
I mean, hey, at this point, like everything is conjecture from my end. So,
Right.
yeah. So if you have any thoughts, put them in the comments. And while we're waiting for folks to do that, I'm going to introduce our topic for today. So Bassam and I actually had a chance to chat about certain aspects of this last week, but we were talking about the performance aspect of art or being an artist. And last week, Bassam and I kind of focused a little bit on our interior relationship to the expectation of performance. And I think we have seen the history of performance and how it is related to art through the centuries, from people coming in to watch artists paint or talk about seeing the creation of a thing, all the way to performance art itself and people being able to engage with an artist who is performing a piece of art. But now with the advent of social media in the last 20 years or so, it has become even more expected that not only is the art visible, but the artist is visible. And sometimes there is either a performative aspect to the artist's presence, or we are expected to perform the act of art in some way for people, meaning they're seeing behind the scenes, or they're watching a speed paint, or there's somehow your entire process is becoming more available to people. And I think as we see AI get better and better, there's even going to become an expectation that your process must be available to, I guess, give your bona fides and say, yeah, I did actually make this thing. So there's a way that performance is kind of inherently tied to how we think of art and artists. And if you just think of any baking or cooking and baking show, any a lot of the shows like I just lost the name of it, but it's like a forgery, not like forgery. It's like a smithing show, Forged in Fire. That's what it's called. Or like there's a glass blowing show. Like there's just a crap ton of these reality TV shows that follow artists through their process because we're kind of amazed by that, enraptured by that, entranced by that. I mean, it's a really interesting thing to watch. Even there's a great British pottery show. My husband and I watched all the seasons back to back, because it's just a really, I'm telling you, it's such a cozy watch, Matt. Don't raise your eyebrow. You would love it. There's one guy who cries all the time. It's great. Anyway, so we as viewers and consumers of art love to see the process and love to see the performance, but we as artists don't always love to be performers. So it's just an interesting tension there and an interesting dichotomy there. And I'm sure that there are aspects of this that I have not even touched on. So I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you think that the performance aspect of being an artist is something that is important now or even going to be more important in the future? Can we ignore that and still be very successful? What is our relationship like to that aspect of performance, particularly where social media is concerned? Just any thoughts in general that tend to kind of pop up and feel like valid things to discuss. And if you're in the audience today, put your comments in the comments. We want to talk to you. That's like the whole point of being here live. Otherwise, we would just meet and be quiet and you guys would never know. So hang out with us because we like you. So what do you guys think about this idea of how performance is related to art? And then how do you think of it, handle it, deal with it?
It's not performance if you're real. right? It's not performance if you're authentic, if you're just kind of putting yourself out there. The issue that I have is it's not about the performance, it's about the need for visibility, right? So in a market now where anybody can be a celebrity in 12 minutes, then we've lost the ability to really take advantage of word of mouth and the social proof that you get from close friends, right? So back when I was growing up, you're like, oh, go to this store, go to this restaurant, go to this club, listen to this record, right? Because your friends told you to do that. Now, because everybody's inundated with so much from every direction, we've kind of lost a little bit of that close-knit circle social proof. So what does that mean? For an artist to get more visibility, they've got to be out there way more often so that they can infiltrate those groups and become a bit more word of mouth or find your tribe. But you don't have to perform to do that. You just have to be present all the time. That in and of itself can be a real hindrance. But I think that whenever I'm doing it, I know that the gross feelings that I get are more from, fuck, I gotta do something else today. Like, I just did this 3 months ago. I have to do this again, right? But when I do it, it's just me. I'm not trying to be a performing artist. I'm just kind of like, here's me, right? It's the necessity to even put myself out there rather than get the word of mouth in a small community and have that be enough. I feel like I have to be marketing nationwide or worldwide just to gain a smidgen of the attention that I could have gotten if we didn't have access to everything, right? We're so connected to the world that in order to stand out on this, you've got to be there more often. Just got to be seen more often. And that part sucks because it takes away, I think, from us doing our thing, whatever our thing is supposed to be. I spent 2 hours today trying to record a 1-minute TikTok. 2 hours to do a 1-minute TikTok because I filmed it and I recorded the audio and then I have to put that together. My laptop crashed. Now I got to do titles and now I'm doing titles and like all the things. I'm not the one and done. Film it and put it out. I want a little bit of production value in it, but I don't feel like it's performing. I just feel like it's giving the better value. I don't like wasting time like that. So it drives me away from doing it. I know that's off the topic of performance, but performance for me is just authenticity.
I don't think that's off topic
it's not
at all.
Performance, it's authentic. Yeah.
So I've been very interested recently in the idea of like digital minimalism. As I sit here, on Facebook on a live stream that's also up on YouTube with my phone next to me. But like conceptually, I've been trying to implement some of these minimalist ideas and unplugged ideas into my life where I can, turning off my notifications, not being always available, and like trying to really focus on that joy of what I'm doing and that focus on what I'm doing instead of wasting it on doing things that do feel performative, however authentic they are. Spending 2 hours making a TikTok video, which I absolutely have done too, many a time, is that actually moving me forward in any positive way? Is it actually doing something good, or is it just something that I feel like I have to do that I don't really have to do? If I dedicated those 2 hours to, say, Nicole knows this, my hatred for painting fabric. If I dedicated those 2 hours practicing painting fabric and I did that every single time instead of working on my TikTok videos, would my art be significantly better to the point that it's serving me much better than something that gets 800 views and a couple likes? So I don't think that's off topic at all, because we have this pressure, even if it feels authentic in how we present ourselves, to be performative in that aspect.
You earlier, when Matt was talking about feeling like he can show up and be authentic and it doesn't seem performative, you were shaking your head like, I don't know if I agree with that. And I'm curious to know what your thought process is. Ooh, a bug. What your thought process is there, because it's a tiny bug. I don't know what to say. Because I feel like I have felt professional. I have felt in the past both ways at some point, where sometimes I felt like I'm just showing up and being me, and other times I'm like, I don't want to be here. I know I have to do this in order to reach where I want to be, and then it absolutely feels performative. So I wonder what your thoughts are then on that, Becca.
I think that might kind of come down to personal associations with the word performative, and maybe even a kind of a bit of semantics. I mean, like in your case, Nicole, you have, often mentioned that you've been this flamboyant, loud actress style personality your whole life, right? So maybe going out and pursuing that kind of physical energy and putting on that performance in a non-negative sense, not in a way that it's inauthentic, but it is performance.
If it's for the sake of other people, it's performance.
And I mean, yes, exactly. And sometimes, I mean, that's just inherent to who someone is as a person. So it isn't explicitly a bad thing to be performative in your personality. And you see this with lots of different kinds of people. Like some people take very naturally to things like social media, to doing live streams, to, writing 140 characters on Twitter and being able to manifest like organic conversations that way through doing that performance to engage with other people. It isn't explicitly negative. But if it's not in your character, if that's not something that you feel personally driven to do, aside from maybe potentially monetary gain, or you feel like that's just what you're supposed to do, that's when it brings in that negative connotation. So even if Matt is going and making his TikTok video and it's entirely Matt and it's wonderful and it's him and it's natural and it's just honest, if Matt wasn't really going to do that for any other reason other than he feels like he's supposed to update his TikTok, I would file that under performance.
So maybe there's a difference, then a slight difference in between saying that something is a performance being something is performative. Because I think we often take the feeling that performative means fake.
Yes.
Yeah. And those connotations definitely do exist in regular conversation. So I mean, I can see both sides of that. And you're right, it may come down to semantics and just how we individually define that word or how we conceive of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I took it. But I agree with Becca 100%. Right? I took it more as I have to be performing, I have to be acting, I have to be something salesy or something that people expect rather than just being myself. But you're absolutely right; it's performative just through the act of doing it. So
now do you guys feel that even in cases where you are performing in a way that you're forcing yourself to I just lost the ability to speak English.
You can perform in an authentic way. You can actually act in an authentic way.
Right.
But it's when you don't feel authentic is where I am. Right. When you're doing it and you just don't feel authentic, completely against who I am, completely against my values. So it's not the act of performing is not a problem if you feel authentic and if you're natural at it, or even if you're not and you work hard and get there. Right? I don't know if that's what you're trying to say.
Yes, that actually reminded me how I was trying to word the question. So that's a great example, Bassam. So for you, if it doesn't feel natural and it feels inauthentic, are you doing these performative actions?
No,
anyway?
I don't. I can't.
Okay.
And the pressure is there because and the pressure comes from the trends, right? The pressure is always there to be out, put yourself out there. The pressure is there to be visible in today's world and social media. But sometimes the trends go in a direction that you just don't connect with, or you're not either very good at, or you don't feel authentic doing. And if I look at the trends nowadays of what photographers are doing, or at least the ones I'm looking at, I'm sure not everybody is doing it. I haven't found an authentic way of doing it, or even to attempt it, because I know in advance I'm going to feel awkward.
Yeah. Right. So my second half of my question then, but since you're not doing it, so maybe Nicole, Matt, or anyone who's watching right now, if you've put yourself to follow those trends or whatever performance art on the internet that you don't feel naturally inclined to do, has it positively benefited you to do it regardless?
Yes. And I hate admitting that. Yeah.
Tell me more.
I just hate admitting the fact that when you're consistent and you show up, people notice and good things happen. Like that's the simple formula for it, right? And I've never been one that loved the spotlight. I've always wanted to be behind the scenes and just have my actions and my work speak for itself. It doesn't have to be about me. I want the work to be the team, something that to be the focus. And I was noticing that trying to not be in front of the camera or trying to just let the work speak for itself, just getting buried in the world of art. Just there's millions of white guys with a beard with a camera, right? So how do you differentiate yourself? Well, you just kind of keep showing up more than the other guy, outwork them. And so by doing that, I have noticed it's not a marked increase. God knows I'm not getting on a yacht anytime soon, but it's like I have noticed through engagement that when I put things out in a more consistent way, the metrics go up. Inevitably, I stop, I'm inconsistent, and they drop off. It's the only reason I can see all these trends is like, oh yeah, I fell into a depression for September. So there was a big lull there. And then I came out of it and did a whole bunch of stuff. And look at that. They came, went up again. I've noticed that within the crowd that I'm exposed to, things go better when I show up more consistently. And it doesn't make a difference if it's highly produced or just me walking with the dog. It's just the act of showing up that increases the engagement, increases the visibility. And I hate it. I mean, I love people watching. I just hate the act of doing it.
Right. And do you think that it's the reason that you hate it? Is it the thing itself, or is it the expectation, like the knowledge that you don't really have a choice, or the feeling that you don't really have a choice if you want to get the things you want?
I don't like being told what to do. And I feel like they are telling me that I have to do it in order to stay relevant, right? And they can suck it because they are the ones that cause all this weird stuff in our heads, right? So I think for me, I love having the tools available to me. I have no problem using them. I want to use them on my terms and hope that I get the same result. That's not the case. There are methods that you got to follow.
Yeah. If I were to answer Becca's question there, I would say first, yes, that it has been beneficial if we're talking about, and I just pulled up the statistics on my website just to make a quick numbers comparison. But aside from direct traffic, which is my number one source of income, TikTok is next, and that outperforms Google and Facebook together. So just posting to TikTok, I don't ask people to visit my website. I'm not like, if you go to my website, there's stuff there. It just happens to be the next biggest traffic generator. And that's even when posting random content. Like, I don't necessarily have a specific content strategy for TikTok other than to show up and be engaged in the community of TikTok and Book Talk, and specifically where I'm at. But I don't have a plan besides that, like to be visible, to share my thoughts on things, to connect with people. So website traffic is one of the ways that has been beneficial. The other way is that I've met a lot of incredible people in my community who already have, number one, become friends, and number two, have put themselves forward to be able to work with me, which is really incredible because I'm working with two different narrators because they found me there and they really enjoyed my work and they reached out because they wanted to be involved in it. And had that not been the case, I would not have that happening right now. And then the amount of people who are signing up for things like ARC reading, beta reading, being involved with my books, that also is almost entirely driven through TikTok. So that platform, I'm absolutely seeing benefits from it. And some days I'm like, ooh, I have ideas of things I want to share and I'm excited to do it. And other days I'm like, I don't want to do anything. But I mean, that is through almost my entire platform. And so I find that it's not necessarily the act of doing it itself. Like, I don't love the filming and the editing and the putting in hashtags and the putting in subtitles and everything else that you have to do to make it happen. I don't love that. It's not a process I enjoy. But the connecting with people and the talking about my work, especially when people respond and they're excited about my work, and that makes me excited that they're excited, and like this lovely synergy happens. All of that part I enjoy. So yes, But I resent the fact, like Matt, that it feels like a necessity. It feels like if I don't do it, I'm going to fall off the face of the earth. And in a strange way, there's almost a resentment toward the fact. I always say people want to work with people. And people care about people. And when they see you as a real person, they care about what you do. They want to know what you do. They want to support what you do. And in a strange way, while I'm grateful for that because it builds community, it also makes me resent the fact a little bit that my work didn't do it by itself. Like I have this meritocracy idea where as long as my work is good enough, it'll go out into the world and sell itself. And people will be like, this is a high-level work of genius. Everyone should read it. And then they love it and everybody loves it. That isn't how the world works. That's never how the world has worked. I don't know why we get it into our heads that the work will sell itself, because it never has, it won't, it never will. The times that happens is this much. That is like finding a unicorn, right? The times that somebody writes something and they just poop it into the universe and then somebody finds it and oh my God, it's the best thing ever. Usually when that does happen, it's because the right person found it and then that person sells it for you instead of you. So like there's never been a time when just the work by itself, people had the right mentor, people had the right social group, people had the right social standing, they got the right patron. Like these are the kinds of things. The greatest artists in history, we may never know who they are because they didn't have a wealthy patron who could put their shit in museums. Like that's just the truth of the situation. So I don't know why we've got it into our heads that we think we should be any different, where no, but my work though, my work should. I'm not special. And I wish that of course we're special. We're all special. That's not the point. The point is, this is how it works for everybody. But somehow we tell this story. If you just get good enough, that's what's going to do it, you know? And maybe if we didn't tell that story, it would feel less performative to show up in places and be like, hey guys, I make stuff. Maybe that wouldn't be so hard. That was very rambling. I apologize.
No. So that I had a thought. We first talked about the act of performance as an element of being a professional artist, right? I was thinking about the desire to be performative from our clients and our customers too. And so in the case of, genius artist makes a single piece of work and gets discovered by the right person and now they're famous and they're making us all look like crap. What is the driving force though, perhaps between that person who found them? Because I feel like there is a certain desire from a lot of people who do commission or hire artists or buy their art to be seen, I think. I mean, if you're like an art curator, right? I think there's an element of like a desire for some sort of notoriety, that you're making the right decisions, that your choices are being shown in whatever gallery. If you hire a photographer, and I've definitely experienced this a lot within the photography realm, especially in social media, people want to be seen on your social media. They want the short, small feeling of celebrity that comes with being in your reels, with being, on your feed, with being associated with your greatness. And, even if you don't personally have that desire, if the people who are hiring you do, and they see their face or their concept or their movie or their book or whatever associated with you up on the pedestal of social media that you have built, I mean, it's a very powerful sales tactic. And I think it's something that we need to recognize about the people who are potentially giving us money to keep us being professionals.
That's why patrons existed in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because they were all altruistic supporters of art. It's because they wanted to be like, oh yes, here's my house artist, Leonardo da Vinci. I'm the one who pays for his things, See his paintings on my wall? It's very fancy. Like that was the whole thing. It was another game of one-upsmanship to be able to elevate your status by being the supporter of these artists. That's not to say that sometimes some people don't just support art because they love it. Of course they do. But like status was the thing. And if you like, how many of us have never had the desire to name drop when we have an amazing friend? And we're like, yeah, so my friend Matt, right? Like it's we're excited about that. We know a cool person. They actually like us and we need to tell people that, So, I mean, definitely. And I think that's a really, really good point, is we have to ask ourselves, like, why is it important for my potential client to work with me? Like, what what is the performative aspect there? Are they doing that as a status symbol because I only work with the wealthy elite and they want to be seen in this class? Is that they need to prove something to themselves performatively? Like, I can derobe and have photos taken and see myself as beautiful. Like, that is a thing I need to do in case of performance for yourself, right? Like, there's many reasons here. I think it's really, really important for us to think of it that way. So I'm glad that you brought it up, because it's, I think, a key thing a lot of us might be missing.
Just looking at Bassam's face.
Yeah, well, I've been doing almost nothing in terms of performance on social media, and all this talk is telling me is to get back into it at whatever level I'm comfortable with, right? I know it won't be with the trends. I know it's going to be, what happened maybe 3 years ago, or what was popular 3 years ago, whatever. The point is, it's better than nothing, right? Which for the last 3-4 months, it's been essentially nothing. And this discussion is kind of making me think about, okay, so how can I get halfway there? What can I incorporate in there that people are expecting? People, when I say people, it could be our clients, it could be just the general public on social media, while not really crossing over that, going against my values or what I'm comfortable with or my authenticity and so on and so forth. Right. So you're making me think. Right.
That's good.
But the pressure is definitely there, right?
I would be very interested to hear from people who reject social media. But then how do I find them if they're not on social media?
I'm sure that there are some. I know that there's a TED Talk I remember watching. I watched it and rewatched it. It was a specific business owner who was like, I don't do social media. I've never done social media, and my business thrives. And it's because they focus on those in-person contacts and connections and, those kinds of things. And I think, like, at the end of the day, in your case, Bassam, like, I don't necessarily think we have to be on social media in order to be successful at all. But I do think we have to find a way to be in front of people that works for us, that we can repeat and be consistent at, as Matt said, like, that we can show up at over and over again without resenting it. And at this point, for me, I mean, I think for all of us, it's a question of a couple of things. Like, what are your preferences? What are your comfort level? What is your workflow like? And then what kind of money do you have to spend? And that is an honest to God question I think we need to be serious about. I am on social media because I don't have money. And for many of us, that is the case. Like, we do not have a marketing budget. We are our marketing. And so we show up to create space for ourselves in this economy of attention where we can get what we can manage to get. And then for a lot of folks, once you get to a point where you're making enough money, you kind of try to slip back down below the surface and just watch it all happen as you pump money into whatever brings you business, whether that's Facebook ads or Google ads or, whatever. If you have your assistant do testimonials with your customers, and then those testimonials go up on your website and they go up wherever, like, it doesn't matter. But I think we do have to ask ourselves that question, not only for how we can show up and be performative on behalf of our business and where we want to do that, but like Becca was saying, like, why do your clients want that? Especially if we're photographers, we're taking pictures of people, they're putting themselves in front of a camera on purpose. What do they need from that experience? And is the performative aspect part of that? Because for some folks, it 100% will be. They want to show off to everybody. They want to show this amazing picture turned into a painting where they're, a magical sorceress with a sword slaying demons. And you're like, woo, look at this. And they want everybody to see that. And so what do they need from that emotionally? Like, why are they chasing that down with you? If you can answer that question, I feel like that's a really, really powerful tool, whether you're the one that's sharing that, like, on an online spaces or not.
Do you think that we're talking about a performative aspect? And I think when I hear that term, I'm thinking predominantly social media, right? I'm not talking about education and speaking and setting up workshops and all that. I'm talking about social media and how we show up online. Do you think if we were pre-social media, right? All of us, I think, are old enough. Maybe Becca might be skirting it a little bit. But if we all remember before there was all this pressure, and we were working artists, do you think we would be having the same conversation, or has just the fact that we have to be visible all the time created this pressure, created this resentment, created this opportunity for us to reach people that we never would have reached otherwise? But do you feel like it's crept into the art world a little bit more, especially the solo undiscovered artists? Do you think we feel more pressure to do more versus if those tools weren't available and we just had to do the, hey, meritocracy, our work is better than so-and-so's, or we find a patron? Am I getting that question across correctly? I just feel like we've created this problem for ourselves.
Welcome to the 21st century, Matt. Yeah, that's an entirely different conversation about all these problems we've created for ourselves with the internet. But I mean, we can rewind a little bit, I think. And if we look at various types of artists, right, historically, and the stereotypes that are kind of associated with being an artist, and the personality that comes with being an artist, and the look of being an artist, and how people define themselves. I mean, those are all performative elements that people have tapped into, and not just in performance art, but you've got your various hotshot photographers or outrageously loud socialite painters, and things like that. That was all similar aspects of becoming a character, becoming an icon, natural or not, again, that require being seen in a performative way. I think that absolutely did exist prior to social media.
100%.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not claiming that it didn't exist. I just feel like en masse we have done this to ourselves, right? So there's 4 of us here and we're all trying to do our thing versus Basquiat, who was just kind of out there being weird, right? And getting noticed for being weird. I'm really weird and I don't get noticed at all. Maybe it's because I live in the woods, but I'm wondering if we've created this drama for ourselves instead of just kind of showing up and doing the thing that we do and taking advantage of the tools that we have at our disposal.
So,
Well,
go ahead, Bassam.
I would guess that every generation has to deal with a similar thing. Just it's the media is different.
Yeah.
Look, 200-300 years ago, people traveled from town to town to perform. All right, and they had no choice because the pressure was there to go from town to town and do their either circus thing or their painting or their. And I bet you they sat together and said, "Well, I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel right doing it. I don't have the money to do it." It's probably the same conversation. Just I'm
old enough to remember that.
So I agree. I think the performative aspect and the performative pressure has always been there. I think just the marketplace has changed. So it used to be you could hang up a sign on the square, right? You could put up your sign that said photographer. There probably was only one in your town. So just the mere act of putting up a sign, everybody was like, oh, that's where that guy's at. So you could get business because that was a skill set that not a lot of people had. And once your sign was up, like that was kind of all you needed. And then as more people started doing the thing, and as cities get bigger and as you have competition, all of a sudden now there's the pressure to distinguish yourself somehow. And then that was buying space in the yellow pages. That was putting ads in the newspapers. That was getting a TV spot or a commercial. And then as we stopped watching TV more, like network type TV, as we started having social media, we're still hanging up our signs, but we have to hang the sign up multiple times and we have to figure out ways to do it that distinguish us. So I think this process has remained the same. It's just the manner in which we go about it. And the competitive aspect of that, like the being able to distinguish ourselves, and the competitive aspect of that has always been there as well, which goes all the way back to naming your business, right? Like how it used to be, you tried to name your business in a way that would get you in the top spot in the yellow pages. So if you could name your business with an A, that was great, because the least amount of pages somebody had to turn, the better, which then of course went on to Google. The whole idea is to get onto the front page of Google by whatever means necessary, because people are more likely to find you that way. So there's always that social pressure. But I also think that there's an innate evolutionary pressure of being a human and being a social creature and needing the validation of being seen by other people, because it's not enough just to make a thing that somebody enjoys. You need somebody to know you made it. And that is why artists put their art out there in the first place. It's not enough just to quietly hear somebody say, oh, I really loved a thing. We have to overhear that and be like, I'm so glad you loved it. That was why I did that. And I don't think that that's narcissism. I feel like that is connection, because that's coming from the innermost part of you. And when somebody connects to that, that's one of your people. And you want to have those. So I think that there's multiple things happening there. And I want to say, I randomly scrolled across, I think it was Priyanka Chopra, and she said something along the lines of, fame is perception, so you have to give people something to perceive. And if people don't have a thing to perceive, and we've talked about this before, they're going to go based on their own assumptions. So they'll believe whatever story about you they're able to, or your work that they're able to cobble together from whatever information happens to be there. And you can see this happen from artists who tended to be really, really private. Like you never really knew much about them. And so everybody would make up stories and be like, yeah, you know, it's like the writer who lives in the woods kinds of things. And what do they store bodies out there? Like, oh, it's very creepy. You know, you tell stories about what, like, just think of Banksy. Part of his marketing is the fact that you don't know who he is, or where he's at, or what he's going to do, or who he's worked with, or if that piece is his or is it not. Like, that's part of the mystique. And that is inherently performative, even though he's hiding. It's all public facing stuff that we then grab onto and make stories about. So given that he's a pretty unique in the art space, the rest of us want to show up and be like, yes, this is my painting. It doesn't matter, because it's still a story about you that you are telling to people over and over again through the means that you have available. So
even Banksy kind of taps into this more like animal psychological element of fame, though, in that his name is recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
And it is no longer novel, and it feels like something people are comfortable with. They know whether, I mean, he could be a total giant jackass, or, you know, be the worst person in the world, but
or it could be a she.
He could be a she. He could be neither. He could be
don't know.
non-binary. Whatever.
We don't know.
We don't know. But because of the relationship we have with such a recognizable name, it's positively influencing our opinion of the artist Banksy. And so there's kind of this like science of fame, and there's been various studies and stuff done on this, where the more people are exposed to something and the less novel that something is, because something that's new, right? It's frightening to us. If we think, you know, with our little tiny lizard brain, something new appears in our environment and we're like, okay, is this cool? Is this safe? Do I like this? And then we see the thing every single day, multiple times a day on our Instagram feed, or out in the savannah where we're hunting gazelle, I don't know, wherever. It becomes more familiar. It becomes a part of our everyday life. It becomes something we think of immediately and make associations with. So the more people are associating us with existing, with our name, if it's recognizable, with our art, with our face, the better their perception of us is, regardless of how good or not we might actually be at whatever thing. So like that, like Matt was saying, that, you know, showing up and doing the work and being there every day and, you know, being consistent with it. It is a psychological tactic, though, for our clients, you know, to use on our clients, because it makes us memorable. Does that make sense?
Familiar.
Yeah, it makes us familiar.
Yeah.
It makes it something, you know, a safe part of their environment. The first thing that's going to come to mind when they think, oh yeah, I need to hire a portrait photographer, and oh yeah, that guy Matt, yeah, he's the first one I think of, because he's on my Instagram feed every day.
And that's exactly the feedback that I've gotten, right? I am not the best photographer out there, and nor do I have the most clients, but the clients that come to me are typically invested in what I've put out there, and they connect with it in some way, right? Whether it's a message that I put out just talking like this, or whether it's the work itself, which is rarely the thing that brings people in. I don't say that in self-deprecating way. It's just pictures are pictures. I tend to bring people in through this connection, and I don't take advantage of that enough. I don't put myself out there, you know, face to face. Absolutely. But doing it online, feeling forced because they say I have to, that's where the rebel in me is just kind of like, can't tell me what to do. You're not bossing me. But I realize that in the absence of anybody being around, the only access that I have to people is through something like this, and it's beneficial. Why not utilize the tool and be grateful for it rather than bemoan the fact that I actually have to do it? Doing this brings me business, which affords me a lifestyle I like to live. I can be grateful for that, or I can bitch that they want me to do it. I'd rather be grateful, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the message I'm getting. And that's exactly what I'm getting out of it. You articulated it really well. Is that why not take advantage of it? It's there. And you're still in charge. You can still decide how far to go and what to do.
And you don't have to say anything you want to say, which is like the great part.
I won't say a thing myself. Maybe I will.
You know, I have to say, Nicole, and it's kind of circling back to WPPI, is you get to rub elbows with people that are at a stratospheric level in the industry, and you realize that they are exactly the same as you and I, with all the same fears and concerns and ups and downs. But it is the fact that they're showing up, that not that they have sponsors or anything, but they've worked and shown up all the time so that they become the household name, so that they become something that people seek out. Doesn't necessarily make them better or worse. It's just they've put the work in to do it, and it shows. It shows. So
absolutely. Lindsay has a brilliant thing to add here. Social media is better than walking around a city with a bag of work hoping somebody's going to pay attention to you. Cold calling or old school mail campaigns. Like, I remember taking my first portfolio and walking into a local store and being like, will you carry my art? Look, here it is. Like, I remember that. That is way scarier than putting a few pictures up on Facebook and being like, I made these things. Do you want some of these things? Because we do have at least the protection of the computer between us, right? When you're standing there looking at somebody's faces, they're looking at your art. That is a whole different physical experience when somebody's like, yeah, this is nice. You know, it's a whole different thing.
That hurt me just to watch.
yeah.
I remember those days. So there's one more thing too that I want to add to this conversation, even though we're coming to the end of it, and this is something that I've talked about before. But it's the performative aspect of art in how you present the art. Because back in the day, it was something like the newspapers were running articles because this crazy artist did a thing, and all of the pictures were going to be shown in this gallery, and everybody was going to be there. Nobody had seen anything yet, and there's only one of each thing because the artist burnt all the negatives. Like, that is performative bullshit, is what that is. That is a way to make the thing you're doing special and to build up some kind of excitement around the thing, so that when it launches, everybody already has expectations built around what it is and what it means and how it's important. And that's the one thing I think I would want artists to keep in mind, because right now with social media, the pressure is just to put shit out all the time and be like, blah, blah, here it is, here is more. And pretty soon the novelty aspect of that is gone. And so even though I think the familiarity, like Becca was mentioning, is important in like you being a name, if you don't have any novel aspect to your work, it ceases to be exciting. And so the excitement around that naturally motivates action is gone. And also where you sit as far as the stratum of artists that you work within, it's also affected by how you release these things. So if nobody has ever seen your work anywhere other than Instagram, but this person has been published in these magazines and their work is on billboards, and that puts you in a different place in people's minds, so that if a client wants you for the performative aspect, I want to be special, I want to be the star, I want to be the A-list, I need the best whatevers, they're not going to go to the person whose work has only ever been seen on Instagram. So the way that you release things and how you put them before the public is an important performative aspect of this that it can be really powerful if you keep that in mind. And sorry, Bassam, I did not mean to cut you off. I just was.
No, I didn't really start saying anything. I was just, when you talked about, something published in a newspaper and so on, going back to Matt's question earlier about, are we today, are we facing more pressure today or more complications or complexities in how we navigate this subject versus way back, whether it's 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. I think also, I mean, we have a lot more source for information today, a lot of sources for information. When you gave your example of a newspaper, everybody in town got the news from the newspaper. And I mean everybody, because it was the only source for news. Whereas you take that same town today and there's about 100 million sources for the news, and there's probably 2 or 3 people that saw your thing or your source, right? So there is more complexity today in that sense, because the attention span is not there, because there's so much out there, right? So the competition, so the pressure is not only to be out there, but what's the trend? What's the social media of the week, right? Platform of the week or month or year, and the pressure is coming from all these directions, as opposed to how do I make it into the newspaper, right? Because there is no other source, or there's no other. Yeah, I can travel to the other town. That's the other way to do it. There's 2 things I can do. So yeah, it's a bit more complex today.
Yeah. Well, and at that time, a lot of your reach was based on how much money you could spend. Could you put a big ad in the newspaper,
right.
and how far forward could you get
Right.
it? Could you run a big ad on TV, and how far? That's why money was a necessity in politics, because you have to pay for placement. And with the democratization of information, now you have to pay for attention. And how are you going to pay for attention? And that's the big question. And if you're going to do it with money, you can pay somebody to do that and put stuff out for you. If you're going to do it with time, with personality, with authenticity, you may not be paying for it with money, but you're definitely paying for it with your time and attention. And that is a real cost. And it's easy for us to be like, well, now you don't have to pay for it because, anybody can get a Facebook account. No, you're paying for it. If you earn an hourly rate, you're paying for it. If you spend your time doing it, you're paying for it. That is a moment, an hour you spent Facebooking that you would have been earning $25 working at McDonald's or whatever. So not McDonald's. Anyway, that's not the point. But you get what I'm saying. Your time is worth money. You have to remember that. You are paying for it one way or the other. We're coming toward the end of the hour. Go ahead, Becca.
It can be my final thought. I can wait.
Just say the thing.
So, okay. My thing is that I feel like we've kind of danced around this throughout this whole conversation without actually talking about it. Because this isn't really, I feel like it's a marketing conversation, but it's not. But a long time ago, when we were really talking about marketing, we talked about market segmentation and about how to truly break down your desired clientele into different segments and how to really appeal to each of them. And one element of market segmentation is the psychographic segment, or elements of your desired client, how they spend their time. What does their daily behavior look like? When they go on the computer, what are they doing? Are they opening Facebook? Are they not? Are they opening the Wall Street Journal? Are they just playing video games? What is it that they specifically do with every moment of their day? What do they interact with every moment of their day? And how do you place yourself into that daily experience? And it's so much broader than just, I'm going to be on social media and be as loud as possible, because then, as you touched on very early in the conversation, Nicole, the right person might not be seeing you being loud everywhere on the internet if that's not how they spend their time. So I think that overall, throughout this performance or not, performative action or not, being on the internet and being on social media or not, if the intent is to sell, if it is a marketing strategy that we are implementing as professional artists, we really need to stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking more about the specific actions of our desired clients. Because if we create something great and valuable and fantastic and innovative and novel, it's genius, and people who are interested in that kind of genius are not the ones who are seeing it, that it's useless. It's useless. We become that artist lost to history because they never got a patron. But if you find that very specific community, that very specific type of daily routine, and put yourself in that for people to see, that is where the success is going to come from.
And I'll tag on to that. I just started reading Get Different by Mike Michalowicz. I don't know. He's the same guy that wrote Profit First. And so he's got this book out called Get Different. It's about marketing. And essentially the first kind of introduction hype chapter, he says, a lot of people get upset because they'll see someone else getting a slice of the market that they want. And they know that their work is better than the other person's work. And they know that, they can serve their clients better. And his main point was, if you are not marketing yourself, if you're not putting it out there, then you're doing a disservice to your clients. You're obliged to market yourself if you think you can do better. It's your obligation to do that so that the customers don't get a shitty product from the other person, right? So, when I was reading this literally yesterday, as I just started this book, and it made a lot of sense. And it was just another signal that got to show up. You got to do it. If you want people to see you in a certain light, you've got to do it. You're obliged to do it. Otherwise, you have absolutely no leg to stand on if you're not getting the results that you want. And I'm saying that as much for myself as I am for anybody else that's listening. So yeah, it was kind of an eye opener. Like basically someone saying, you're obliged to do this. If you're not, you're being a terrible person. And I was like, all right, I've got enough people telling me that. Like, we can do this without the marketing spin, thank you. But it was a powerful statement. And I'll just kind of leave it there, that if you think your stuff is better or needs to be recognized, then you're obliged to do it in whatever way you can. That's it.
That's a really good point. To be a nerd about it just reminded me of this fantasy book, and there was a guy who was going to be a king, and he's like, they don't want me and whatever, and the advisor was like, do you really think that anybody else could do this job? Like, do you believe somebody else would do it better than you and take care of these people the way you want them taken care of? And he's like, no. Well, then shut up and do the job, right? Like, do you actually care? Do you care enough to sacrifice a few minutes of your time? Well, then do the job, right? And I love that, Matt, because it really is like, for so many of us, we have discomfort around showing up and saying, hey, I do a good job at this and I will do a good job for you. Because we feel like that's putting ourselves, forward, or that's being unhumble or being whatever. But don't those clients deserve what you think is the best? And if you're the one who does it, why would you want to keep that from them? Why would you be selfish enough to keep that from them, right? Oh, sorry. So, I mean, I love that point. I think that's great. It's a good spin, some mental reframing there, Bassam, do you have any final thoughts today?
Not really. No, been well said by others.
Sorry, spammers are calling me. Scams. Okay, so we've talked a pretty decent amount about how there is a performative aspect tied to our art. And then we've also talked, Bassam and I were lucky enough to talk last week about the kind of the internal way that we respond to that, how we feel about it, how that affects how we put ourselves out there. So I just want to put before the artistic community to really think about what it is that you're offering to people. And I'm not talking about the pen and ink. I'm not talking about the paper or the clay. I'm talking about the emotional experience, the emotional needs that you're meeting for the people that you're serving. What do they need? Why do they need that from you? And then, as Becca said, where are those people? Are you talking to them in the right places? And we've talked a lot on the Artist Forge in the past about the fact that often, because when we first become artists, we go looking for community, and then we just kind of inherently try marketing to other artists. We build our community of other artists, and we're like, hey guys, hey. And they're like, that's really cool for you. But that's it, because they're doing the same thing, and they're trying to find people to buy as well. And we haven't taken the time to recognize what our clients need from us and where they're at and how we can continue to show up for them over and over again. But then also to ask ourselves, as Bassam did, like, is this a thing for me? It's not for everybody. If you can afford to pay somebody to do that for you, you don't necessarily have to be there, especially if that suits your happiness best, right? And your ability to serve your clients. Maybe you would rather have somebody else run your Facebook account, so that you can spend that time chatting with your clients, calling up your old clients, asking them how they are, and if the service you provided is still working for them. I mean, there's a million different ways to do this thing, but you have to know what is right for you and for the people that you're trying to serve. And then what performative aspects are involved in that. So is that a thing where the performative aspect for you is to show up places in person? Maybe you're the kind of person who shows up and you teach stuff, or you put on, expos or whatever, so people can show up and see you work, and that can be the way that you do that. Maybe you have somebody film behind the scenes for you. Maybe you make a TikTok video. I mean, there's a million different ways to do this, and none of them is wrong. But as Matt said in the beginning, continuing to show up and doing it consistently in a way that lets people trust you is a big one. And then finally, just to ask yourself, how am I releasing this work into the world? So I'll just give the example right now of my book, because that's in the middle of what I'm doing. I let folks know for a while I've been talking about the book and letting people know just in a roundabout way when it was going to come out. And then I put out the call for ARC readers, which is advanced readers. They get an early copy of the book so they can read it and review it before anybody else has had it. That way, when people go looking at my book, there's already somebody there saying this was for me or this wasn't for me. In that process of looking for those people, I got a whole bunch of great feedback, like people wanted to read the book, but then I have to decide what I'm going to do with those folks. Where are they going to go? How are they going to respond to things? How am I going to treat them so that when they put forth their reviews, people know to look for them? I had to generate excitement. When one person sees that 250 people signed up to be part of this team, pretty soon you start to feel a little bit of FOMO. Like, well, I maybe I would like to be part of that team. Like, that's pretty exciting. All these people liked the thing. So you're kind of, from the beginning, controlling the narrative around this thing, talking about, hey, the reviews have started coming in and they're really great so far. And I'm so grateful that people are enjoying this book. I can't believe they love it so much as I do. And then somebody hears that and they go, that sounds like a lot of people love it. Like, sounds like something I want to try. And the more that hype begins to build, and the more that you talk about your work that way, and other people begin to show social proof and all of that stuff, all of a sudden the narrative is being controlled in those spaces where your clients are at. And so when your potential clients see, like, and Tyler is doing this so brilliantly. I hope everybody goes and pays attention. I'm so proud of Tyler. That's our Tyler. He did a campaign and he went on the news station and he did a show for his campaign. And like, he's doing all of the things that are going to make the people in his community feel like this is the guy to go to. He's been featured on the news and he's had a show and he's doing this and he's doing that. And it's like, he's controlling the narrative around himself and his work. He's building that so that other people don't do it for him. And that performative aspect of this whole thing is a power all of us have to control how people see and perceive our art and us as artists. So be thinking about that. If fame is perception, give people something to perceive. Control that narrative. Decide what that is and what you want people to think, and then build around that. And you don't have to do it yourself. Hire a PR person to do it for you if you really hate it, but you have some money. If you don't, you're just going to have to buckle down and bite the bullet, sweetie pie, and just do the thing, because there isn't anybody else to do it for you. So any other final thoughts before we close down for today? I know we're about 10 minutes over.
No.
Cool. Good conversation. Lindsay, thanks for your thoughts today. Loved your observations. And for folks who decided for whatever reason today not to chime in, just know that it's important to us that you're here. The whole reason we get together live is because of you. We want to be able to talk to you and hear from you and know that we're all part of this community together. So no pressure, but next Monday when we get together at noon West Coast time and 3 p.m. East Coast time, come and hang out with us. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts and how you're doing and have these conversations. So I hope that you will join us next week then, Monday. Tomorrow, the Artists Forge and me in particular will be hosting the 3rd annual Obsidian Backdrop Challenge at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So some incredible judges along with the owners of Obsidian Studios. We are going to get together here and we are going to live judge the incredible submissions that they have gotten this year. with the Obsidian backdrops. So the backdrops go around to different artists. They create unique pieces of work with those backdrops, and then we will be judging them live and announcing the winners. And those people will be getting cool prizes from Obsidian. So come back here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 6 for the West Coast and 9 p.m. for the East Coast. Be part of that. I'm honored to be able to do this for them so far every year that it's been alive. So I hope you will come and support these artists and their work, and be part of that. So until tomorrow, and then after that, until next Monday, have a fantastic week. Go make something amazing. Share your art with the world, and that's it. I don't got nothing else. Bye.